evening, everybody, or good afternoon in Europe. Hey, today we're doing another live. It's really, really nice to have Annie and Sydney join me again. And
Yay.
there is that.
Yeah,
Cool,
there's a
right?
glitch. What happened?
Just adjusting the audio.
Also, you were not live.
No, we're live.
We are live. It's just that
It's the audio. It's adjusting the audio.
just
Good to see everybody again. As we're
Yes.
adjusting the audio.
okay.
Yeah,
Really
these are live.
It's it's just how we start is getting our audio settled in.
are we quiet yet?
No, I still hear some echoing of our own talking.
Okay, I think we're quiet now, right?
Ooh, I think so. It seems promising.
I'm always stressed about it. I don't even know where that sound comes from.
Do you have YouTube open?
Yeah, I think I did. So that
So
was
you
on a
want to
different
mute that.
frame. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I can't mute it all from my laptop because then they won't hear then they can't hear me. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, but
Because it's like usually when I stream, I'll like I'll have something plugged in to monitor the audio so that technically I'm like watching my own stream. So there is audio coming in, but no one will hear it because it's going through a different pair of headphones.
yeah. So now let me see. Then
Different routing.
Yeah.
so okay. So everything is settled right now. As usual, I'm always like screwing up technically.
No,
But
you're not. You're doing your
It's
best.
it we're
Yeah.
settling in. It's the audio adjustment section of the stream. It's a classic. It's what we do here.
it's something we have to do all the time. So yes, back to topic. Today we're going to talk about spiritual development. And I thought it's going to be an interesting topic because there's like it is a general discussion because nowadays people often talk about personal development, personal growth, and then here there's one aspect of it which is the spiritual development of it. And is it important? Is it something that we need to include, as part of humanity, part of our own personal growth? So these are some of the things that we're going to explore today. So I hope all of you find it very interesting. So before we begin, we should always open the circle. So
Yes.
yes, connecting heart to heart with so much love and appreciation and gratefulness. I invite all the sentient brothers and sisters across our galaxy and the universes to join us if they're also interested in this topic. And I now declare the circle open.
Ooh.
Yes, so let's start. And I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there. We don't say that we know everything here as a group because we are all growing and we are all learning. And then we have so much things we discover, as we work with our clients and then as we work with each other. So, and sometimes when the guides come through, we learn so much more as well. So yes, the topic today about spiritual development. Each and every one of us probably have a different experience about spiritual development, and I'm just going to open up to Sydney and Annie if you have any of that vague
Oh, wow.
experience or like
Opinions.
yeah, opinions. Always open to that.
It's so interesting because, Teresa, when you told us, oh, today we're going to be talking about spiritual development, and I was like, I don't know what I would even say related to that because I think it can be such a personal thing for everybody. But as you were opening the circle, I did get the sense that it is an important topic. And what comes to mind for me is that it doesn't matter what culture across time, as human beings, we always come up with spiritual practices and have spirituality be part of our lives as a collective. So on an individual level, I think there is that personal aspect, but much like how our emotional well-being or our physical health is something that applies to everybody, I think that some form of your spiritual life is a part of what makes you human and a part of like, what we all need to care about in our own lives as well. So I'm excited to see where we go with this conversation.
Good
Very true.
intro, good start. Yeah. I mean, I think I guess for a lot of humans, that's one of the first thing we need to acknowledge is that do we all acknowledge that we have spirit?
I don't think that would be a yes.
Yeah, not all, right? I
Yeah.
remembered when I was starting to really get to know my personal guides, my angels and all that, and I went over to US to stay with one of my best friend, and she's extremely practical. And I just shared with her that, I've started studying more about angels and communicating with them and working with my personal guides. And I thought this would be a very loving and very warm type of conversation, but it freaked her out. It absolutely freaked her out, right? She go, Teresa, you have no idea. Now when I go toilet, I'm wondering if the angels are watching me pee.
Oh.
I mean,
And I'm like,
seriously.
and I'm like, I never thought about that. Right?
I don't think they watch us pee in the same way that like a person watching you pee would be like a horrible thing.
Right.
It's a
And then
completely different kind of consciousness. So it's like I'm not bothered when I see a lizard on the wall when I pee. I know
that's
that's
a good
not a not
that's
the
a good thing.
same, but
Except that the lizard is probably not going
not paying
to
attention to me.
no, well, they're not going to know about your human anatomy and
Yeah,
go, oh, you're
exactly.
exposing yourself. But an angel probably would, right? But it never occurred to me. And then what really surprised me was that even though we've been best friends for so long, we have never talked about this part of our belief system
Mhm.
that I, by nature, believe that we are spirit and we are spiritual. But for her, it wasn't. It was actually a very learned thing. Even
Mhm.
though she grew up as a Taoist, and then she will take the incense, and pray to ancestors. But it was not something that she truly believed in. So therefore, she would not have any spiritual practices or development.
Yeah.
But then here's the other thing. She does do yoga and she does do Pilates. And for a lot of people from the culture who developed yoga and all that, is actually developed for a spiritual practice, right?
Yes.
Yoga was actually developed for them with the sun salutation, the warrior pose, and all that. It's actually meant to be part of our meditative state that is more active for our inner journey into our inner self, which is part of I would classify that as a spiritual development. So yeah, that really surprised me about uh, the vast difference in understanding what is spiritual development, which is why I thought this would be a very interesting topic for a lot of people to explore.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think it's
I like
also interesting because like you and I, Teresa, we come from a pretty multicultural
Yes.
country as well. So
We've
cool.
seen a lot, and definitely everybody have different forms of spiritual development. But yeah, any from Europe, what do you observe, and what are your opinions and thoughts around that topic?
I was not born in Europe, but
Oh,
I do tend to see similarities where I come from, America. I mean, as Canadian. For myself, if I see it from the way I like to look at words, how they are, how you can make sense with it. Spiritual. I like to the ritual and development is developing somehow, somewhat a relationship which is outside of me or inside of me, but I mean connecting to something. So it could be universe, energy, Jesus, whatever is that brings us, it's my core belief that there's something above us or within us that created us, something that is much more bigger than what I think. And so for me, it's more about how much I invest into the relationship. And it could come, then the practices uh, are accelerating or somehow or developing this relationship with I would say, I was going to say outer world, but before it was like mostly with my religion or the angels I knew or what I've learned from the being a Catholic, and but also as I'm feeling more and more energies, I couldn't pinpoint what was the name of that, but feeling it, knowing it. So I was, acknowledging that. So the more I acknowledge it, it's just the it enrich my life because then I feel I'm not alone and I feel more complete. So it's more about this context, which when like spiritual, it means that it's not just the day-to-day life, but it's also like me acknowledging that there's this universe outside of my 24-hour routine and what are the things that I do for. So that could be the premise or the canvas we can start with from my side.
So you raised a very good question, right? That you want to know that you're connecting to something greater or bigger or something more expanded. And why do you feel the need to do that?
Because I feel it.
But like instinctively, right? But it's like if you could put words to that instinct.
It's part of me. So it's something I cannot ignore. It's also, and the more I spend time and acknowledging it or nourishing it, or the more it brings me, it like feeds me. I don't know how to say that, but it's just like it brings me. I feel like I'm growing, and in certain point, I feel more complete. I feel less alone. I'm part of something greater, and it's in me. Like I'm there too. Like yeah. So we can talk about this for hours. I don't know if you guys have a long time you watching, but we could talk. And I'd like to see also comments if you have yet like a specific opinion or you'd like to share your thoughts on that. We would love to read your comments. So please feel free to write below and share with us and others also because it's for the great of all.
Yeah. No, I really liked what you just said. And I too personally find that even when I was young, like there is always that connection that I'm seeking, right? Like if I feel stressed or anything and I talk to the air, even when I was young, but and be it if I call it God or something, or angels or my guides or whoever, I just feel that the universe is listening, and then they could support me and help me, or even just by calling it out, I feel that it brings me more clarity. And I'm not too sure because that was when I was very young, right? Like I'm talking about maybe like 6, 7 years old. And I haven't started going to church. So I haven't got the language to say that this is God or Jesus or Mother Mary or the angels.
Right.
But I just know to call out. And just knowing that I call out, I know for a fact that somebody's there picking up whatever I'm saying, And to me, that is just an instinct within humans to know that we are connected. Whether we see it or not see it, we are connected. At least was my own journey when I was thinking of myself, not just alone, but connected.
You're reminding me of the physical senses. We have the things like sight and smell and touch and all that. But then there's also a few more, which usually people forget, which is that the inner ear helps us have a sense of balance, right? Like if you spin around too fast, you'll get dizzy because the inner ear is sloshing around. But then there's another one, which is the sense of where you end and other things begin. So it's like I'll sit on a chair and I know that my legs are part of me, but then the chair is its own separate thing. And I forget what those senses were called, but that's part of what we've got. And sometimes when people have like spiritual experiences or they've taken something, it actually inhibits that sense. And then you start to lose this feeling of being separate from stuff. So it's kind of like maybe that instinct which you're describing is our awareness that there's something beyond that sense that creates the idea of where I start and where other things begin. And when we like break that down, we start to get this feeling of like, oh, we are connected to the things around us, and really have those things interact with each other as one entire system.
Mm.
And then the next step, you realize that it's not just like the connection, there's actually a dialogue or sometimes monologue if you're not answering back or listening closely. But then this is where I think when you start growing, then the conversation or the exchanges are being enriched.
Yep. I really feel that let's as we become more woke, hashtag woke, right? That when a lot of people talk about their biohacking, they talk about their personal growth, personal development, people are also merging in the spiritual development behind it without even realizing. Like the yoga practice, right, into the journey into our inner strength, our inner self, or even the mindfulness practice where we sit down to be aware of our connectedness, aware of our greater purpose, aware of how the work that we do as an individual and impacting our environment, impacting the world. That is also very much a connection and also a spiritual development. And the world today are not using the word spiritual, but they're using words like inner peace, mindfulness to actually incorporate that. At least that's the way I recognize where spiritual development and practices are being woven into this growth right now, the trend of the human growth, because we are, after all, moving from the 4th D to the 5th D, and it is a very natural awareness that is awakened or awoken inside us that we just pick all this up. I'm not too sure if you all have the same sense or same observation.
I think it, like you say, it's a very natural part of our development. I think we have a collective development that happens as well as an individual one. And all of us, in order to feel happy and healthy, will have to experience that there is more to us and our lives and the relationships we have than merely subsisting. If it was just like eat, sleep, bathroom, procreate, and continue the species, it would feel very empty. Because I think spiritual development, in a broad sense, if I can find a way to broadly apply it to like all the different interpretations and belief systems people have, it would be that you want to have a sense of what the meaning is beyond just existing.
Would you say that as we develop ourselves spiritually, that is also one way of knowing another dimension of us, like redefining us? Because like, when people ask, who are you? Like, who is Sydney? Who is Annie?
Yeah.
We come up with our name, probably our age, our race, the job we do, our passion, right? But nobody really defines ourselves. We'll all have a term to talk about ourselves spiritually, but it's actually more, for me at least, it is actually quite internal. Is it in the sense of knowing who I am? And it gives me the foundation to be solid like a rock, in the sense that, you know, if somebody want to come up to me and want to try to disturb my peace, like knowing who I am spiritually, it doesn't rock me that much. Do you know what I'm trying to describe here? Because I haven't got the terms and the language to really have that one word, or maybe you do.
I don't think there's one word. Annie, what do you think?
no, I was
But
exactly
you
Okay.
get what I'm
using that.
saying? Like, do you feel what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I would say it, like initially what you're saying is when we externalize our sense of identity, it does help for communication purposes, right? Most of the time if someone's like, so like who are you, or what do you
yeah,
like how are things with you, and you're trying to introduce yourself to someone, you're gonna try and go for like the things you do, your hobbies and interests, and start a connection and conversation that way. And then once you start to go a little bit deeper, you maybe start going into your value systems, what's important to you, how you view life, your philosophy on life, all of that. And then it's like the deeper we go, the less and less we have words to describe it. And then after a while, it's like, I don't know, we just know ourselves and we know others. It to me, it reminds me of with my partner when we first got together, I felt like it was really easy to describe how I felt and like what I love about him. And then now I'm like, I don't know how to describe it anymore. I can try to use some words, but it's just like connection. It feels right. Like it feels good. I don't know how to describe it anymore. And it's gotten less and less verbal as time has passed.
yeah.
I might add to that I simplify thinking about like, okay, personal development is me, one person, personalizing whatever is like I'm doing or what I want, and also what I want to develop also as abilities
Yeah.
with my intelligence or sports or whatever, or physically, mentally. But spiritual is like really it's like when you start investing time until you realize you don't know anyway, because universe is so much broader than you think. So you start looking at things differently, I would say, or you have the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know really things, and it's pretty much like I realize that instead of me, it's more we.
Mm.
And we could be your community, could be your family, could be Earth or your country, but then it could be also your constellation. Then you realize you acknowledge, like, okay, we're just like, or maybe you're thinking you're not just the only one that are living, so other beings, the ones with bodies, the one not with bodies. And then, so it's such a broader spectrum that you are allowing to connect, or you want to connect, or you try to focus to connect and do the exchange, because then you realize that life is so much more of what you think. And when you realize that also this is an experience, what would I would like to learn? And I have also my tools or my guides, and so the references are made maybe it's hard to explain. I know. I don't want to like defocus on one trying. I don't want to, but I think you get it. It's like it's the connection, and you can also do the connection once in a while. There's people with their religion that are connecting with God every day through prayers. There's also people that maybe I used to be one of them, like it's at Christmas and once in a while I felt like the connections. And then there's like spiritual growth where you want this more on a regular basis, and you just want to say yes. Well, that's the way I see it. It might be different for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say when it came to when I was personally defining it for myself for the first time years ago, that was a big word for me was connection. where, like you said, personal growth might be a focus on, okay, what skills am I going to develop in myself? The spiritual part of my life was I want to develop a sense of connection, just overall, right? Connection
Mhm.
with the sense of the world, the people around me, and to energy, to the feeling of just connection in and of itself, and the peace that comes from that. So I agree with you.
And the
And
more I invest time, the more I feel complete. So it's not like now it's like
Yeah.
I have to take a shower every day. I can't go on. It's like has to be somewhat, some way,
Mm-hmm.
so it's more now a way of life, you know.
Exactly.
And it's changing, I think. But the thing is the intention, like the way we do our channeling is to connect and allowing it also, it enriches our life. I mean, my life. And I cannot go back now. It's like if you ask me, okay, change the, nay, no.
and so when did both of you started your spiritual development journey? Or
Hmm.
when did you realize that you,
When did I realize?
yeah, because I don't think we were like conscious to put it into
Yeah,
practice.
it just kind of slid in after a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. When did you
Um,
realize that?
I think I realized it sometime in my late teens was when noticed where my interest was going, because for me, I grew up without any specific spiritual practices around me. I didn't grow up in any particular religion or anything. So I realized that my personal growth exploration was like moving on and shifting into this curiosity around, like, what are people talking about when they talk about spiritual topics? And it just became really interesting. I couldn't stop being curious about it, no matter how much I told myself, wait, no, I don't think this is logical or whatnot. Um, but yeah, it just kept being something that like would show up and be important to me. And after a while, I kind of got over myself, and I was like, you know what? This is something you're interested in. This is something important to you. You should just explore it.
Interesting. Yeah. Annie?
It was an on and off in my teens time because I didn't have any teachers or any references. I was in boarding school, so they didn't have like spiritual books. They had Catholic ones, but and if I would talk about like spiritual things with my mom, like she would get scared somewhat. So basically, there was like this need or of connection through my dreams. I was really having like having a lot of vivid dreams, sometimes daytimes, but sometimes mostly at night. And I search always like I felt like, okay, what do they mean? Like I know there's something going on, and I'd like to understand. And so that was like where I wanted to say yes, but I didn't pinpoint really. It was like I said, it was on and off, and I felt things, and I was very emotional teenager, also very sensitive. Didn't know at that time it was a portal, so of course it was difficult ones. But I would say the pivoting moments was when I had to take charge of my life and find a meaning for my life. I guess there was a moment where a few years that was very depressive up to a point that I tried, well, I've been suicidal for a very long time. And eventually, as I did the work and I searched for help, then I realized like there are some meetings. Before COVID, it was not so difficult, but those meetings were always talking about those 12 steps. And one of them, the steps are talking to connect with an outer source. Doesn't matter how you feel it, could be spiritual, religious, or whatever it is, could be a tomato, but as long as you are connected to it. So already there, that was like mostly bringing me back. But I always have, like I said, on and off, but definitely that was like where it was the anchor, where my growth really started from there, and there on there was my experiences to lead me to Teresa eventually. As the years went by, that's a very short version,
Very condensed.
yes. Well, everything connecting the dots made all sense.
Yeah, it's
And
like your condensed version and my condensed version sounds super similar.
Yeah, yeah. For
but
my
we are similars.
Hmm.
Yeah, like it's interesting because like, like we were not guided in many ways. Like there is no guidance. So for me, I had that instinct and I had insatiable appetite looking for books. And while I was studying in when I was in primary school, so in primary school means grade school for a lot of people, like grade 1 to grade 6, right?
Mm.
Which is around like 7 years old to 12 years old. I was studying in a non-religious co-ed school in Singapore, and I was very fortunate to have found the library when I was very young, like since 8 years old, I've been visiting the school's library nonstop every day. Like if I could check out 6 books per day, I will check out 6 books per day, right? And what was interesting was that in this school, they actually have a section on metaphysics.
Wow,
Right?
fancy.
Yeah, and I was insatiable, right? I was born in the 70s, and people were pretty like in 70s they were taking a lot of things and connecting,
Oh,
right? And so the books that I have access to in that school was about, for example, Uri Geller. Do y'all know Uri Geller? The famous
Vaguely. Yeah, I'm
person who was
familiar.
able to ban spoon
I have to check.
over radio waves. Like he will be on the radio and then he will be asking people to pick up a pen or a fork or something, right? And watch it bend while
I'm
he
not
has
familiar
his
with that part.
backpack, right?
Wow, okay.
And he has the ability to stop the school's clock so that everybody go home early. Then the bell will ring and say school's dismissed, right? So Uri Geller has that ability since young, right? Oh, like he has developed that over time. And I have access to all these books where it is amalgamation of psychic ability, spiritual, talking to spirit. And I remembered reading all these things insatiable, but it is also their way of helping me understand that it is bigger than just our physical form. So since that age, right, even though I was not like brought, I mean, like I was born Catholic, but my mom, because she came from Taiwan, she doesn't really have access or aware of which church to go to and all that. So even though I was born Catholic, I didn't go to real like Catholic hard knocks of Sunday school and this is what you need to do.
You don't have Catholic guilt?
Yeah, until I went to Catholic
Oh.
school. Right? And so for me, my spiritual awareness and development came from books. And it has always been my guidance from them and to get information through the books. And then just somehow by the books, I was able to develop my sense of awareness and a sense of purpose. Even though it was very distracting in the world we live in, right? Like
Hmm.
everything that we do, we are results driven. It's about how good your school results are, or materially, how much you have gained or how much you have amassed. And so all these things is quite separate from our spiritual development, which I'm actually quite grateful for the whole balance perspective. But ultimately, for me, this whole spiritual development and awareness and final conclusion for me is that I know who I am, and there is no words to really describe that. Like I have my sense of purpose and there is no words to describe that. I remember one time I was in Amsterdam, and I was with a group of people. And I'm very desensitized to when people are throwing sarcasm at me or whatever. I just have zero recognition of
Of
sarcasm.
sarcasm.
Yeah, like I wouldn't know. And finally, at the end of the night, and I was walking home with my girlfriend, and then my girlfriend go, "Why did you allow them to talk to you like that?" Like, "Oh, how did they talk to me?" She was like, "They were talking down to you." I was like, "Oh, okay, it doesn't matter." She said, "But you are, like you shouldn't allow that to happen." But for me, because I know who I am and all that, and no matter what people want to throw whatever remarks at me, or like scorn me or whatever, to me it doesn't really hit me, because I really know, like, I am loved by God, I'm loved by the universe, and I know who I am, that no words can actually shake me anymore that way.
Mhm.
So to me, that is part of like knowing who I am, knowing my purpose, knowing what defines me, that nobody else is going to come across like as being rude or talk down to me, because that doesn't define me. So at least that was my sudden awakening of going, oh, okay, I'm blessed that way because I have that sense of purpose and sense of knowing who I am. And I would attribute that to the spiritual development journey that I've been on for a while. It's not conclusive, but at least like I feel that we can be a bit more solid and grounded, knowing who we are, because we have that aspect within us that completes us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Because there's no words to describe it, so it's pretty hard.
But I just realized that there's like in in my very short version, forgot a big part that really started my spiritual journey, because I was dreaming and searching also the definition of my dreams in books. So I was spending a lot of time in the libraries. So I was already in high schools, and the second time, I met this guy, maybe I was 17, and told me about this incredible magician or sorcerer, or how do you call it? Yaqui, not yaqui. What's the terminology of Spanish? But so I read, like he said, you should read a French was like the little smoke and the, I don't know what it is. Anyway, do you know Carlos Castaneda? So I read from day one all the books, and there are many of them. And it was a Philip philosopher, and he was doing his PhD, and he wanted to do and not just philosophy. He was also working as and studied as a sociology and ethnology, and he wanted to do his PhD on all the drugs that the Yaqui, which is a nation in Mexico, First Nation, and he wanted to meet them and wanted to know about the medicine drugs. So he left for a couple of months. It took him 10 years. So I read the first book, and then there was the second book, and it was like about the energies, about the elements, about seeing. So the third book is about seeing other things, and how you do it is it's called in French non faire. So what you do, but you're not doing it. It's like doing something,
The do without
but the
doing.
intention, yeah, without, so cutting
Yeah.
yourself from your space. So Carlos Castaneda, uh, in the meantime, some people said it was maybe not the best person or the good person, whatever. I'm not criticizing, but it was definitely a pivoting moment when I started to read that and talking and entering the world of energies and being other worlds or other dimensions.
Mm, that's beautiful. So we are broaching between like is spiritual development, psychic development.
Mm-hmm.
What do y'all think?
I think they'll overlap in a very natural way, because if you're exploring what spirituality means to you and what and all of that, you'll probably come across all of the stuff related to psychic development or the development of spiritual abilities. But I don't think you necessarily like they do have some overlap, but they're not necessarily the same thing. You don't need to be someone with a lot of magical powers to be spiritually developed and vice versa. So I think it's definitely a really cool and interesting topic. Obviously, I'd say that because we're all channeling and I'm channeling, and I think it's really amazing. But I don't think that someone like needs to do that or something like that in order to develop themselves spiritually.
Yeah.
I kind of like based on what you just said, like Buddha came to my mind, right? We don't hear about Buddha changing water into wine, but we
That's true.
will acknowledge that Buddha is very spiritual,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so you are right there. Psychic could be a psychic ability, like through spiritual development, we may develop that psychic gift within us, but it doesn't mean that you have to be psychic to be spiritual.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
So then the other areas of like, how people tend to, mix a lot of things up is our ascension journey part of our spiritual development.
Is our ascension journey part of our spiritual development? Do you mean like the whole planet, like humans individually?
Personal ascension journey.
Personal. I'm curious, how would you define the personal ascension journey? Like
Well,
what would it entail?
like ascension journey, like in a lot of our practices will be run raising vibration, because it is about raising our vibration, connecting with higher dimension frequencies. So this is where all the energy work comes in, right? And then it's definitely a lot more new age metaphysical type of
New
conversation,
terminology.
right? Those type of terminology where we use like crystal to raise our vibration, or we use certain tools or certain things. It's all about being the lightness of being. Is part of our ascension journey, right? And it's definitely talking to angels and connecting with the different dimension beings as well. These are all part of more of our what we call the ascension journey, using our portals for our journeys as well.
So then personal spiritual
Is
ascension
spiritual
and then
development part of like is that leading us to our ascension journey?
oh, not like based off the way you're defining it, I think again there's like gonna be some overlap, but then even for someone who is very spiritual, they don't necessarily all like we don't necessarily all use the same terminology, or like right now we're using a lot of the more new age terminology for it. I feel like this one's like a tougher question to me. And I don't know, like I don't have a um like a well thought out opinion to pull from past reflections and musings to give.
I have a question. Then do we have to, like, is it essential
For
to
ascension journey
yeah, no.
or
Do we
spiritual
want
development? Which one? What do you mean?
no, the ascension.
Oh,
Is this the
Oh,
goal?
yeah.
Is the purpose, or I
I
can
don't,
be just
I don't know. My
enjoying the
impression
joke?
is like it's not mandatory, you know?
Yeah.
It's not compulsory. No
correct.
one's gonna like be like you did not do your homework.
Yeah.
Go back.
Go
Sit
back.
down.
I tend to agree with all of you, right? Like for me, like the spiritual development is part of our personal development, of knowing who we are, completing who we are. It is, defining who we are. That to me is our spiritual development. ascension journey of raising our vibration, connecting to higher states and all that, right? It could possibly be a calling. It could possibly be an interest. It could possibly simply be that we're exposed to it, like cooking, and say that, okay, I like cooking because I love to eat or something, right? And therefore, like, I like ascension journey because I like the idea of raising vibration, being lighter, and then being a lighter opportunities and possibilities that could be. So for me, they are two separate things. To me, spiritual development is a necessary journey of personal development, getting to know who we are, defining our purpose so that we are grounded, in who we are.
Yeah, I'm like, I agree. To me, I'm like, spiritual journey, everyone's on it, and it's like it'll happen in your unique way, whether you decide to consciously engage with it or not. And then the thing that like worries me with ascension journey, or not the actual ascension journey, but sometimes the way that these sorts of things get talked about is there are the people who make it like a point of personal superiority, and then it's like now it's not even about that journey anymore. And that's like, I'm better than other people who are not as awakened and aware and of all of this stuff. And it's like, oh no, we've lost the point. We've lost the plot.
Yes, that I completely agree with you. Like, a lot of times, like when I go for that level of discussion, when people seem to feel that, oh, there is the leveling of ascension, right?
Like we're the better group now. I've had a few times where I'll end up in a conversation where it's like, oh, we are like the superior beings, and I'm just like, why is this why is this the direction we have gone in?
So you remember at the beginning of our channeling, right? When we have a client, I tend to want to ask about, which dimension you're from. But when I realized that triggers certain level of superiority inside them, I stopped asking that question. Because whether you are of a higher dimension or a lower dimension, it doesn't mean that you are better superiorly. I have seen higher superior people, beings who are less woke in that sense. Less woke in the sense that they are a bit more individualistic, and their conversation is not as wide in terms of perspective.
I think we stopped asking that as much also because it's like there's so many aspects of each person as well that we come across, and I guess it's kind of like asking like, oh, where has this person traveled before? And it's like whichever places you've been a part of throughout your existence is just the places that you've been a part of, right? I'm not going to be able to really assign a value judgment based on that.
I'm glad that we had talked about this, because I think it is so important for people to have that understanding that, to what you say, that if we put a intention on ascension journey because we feel that we are better than the rest of the humankind, because we are more developed and ascended, then that defeats the purpose of the whole ascension journey. It is not about being more superior. It is not being better. It is actually just a journey.
It's just cooking.
It's just cooking. I don't know.
I was quiet. I was totally seeing it differently. Well, with my Catholic background, I was totally seeing the ascension of Mary and Jesus. So that's why I'm saying, is it like a pursuit? And even I was talking about like Carlos Castaneda when he went to in Mexico and wanted to learn about those the Yaquis. Because they're usually they were coming from the Mayans. Okay, so it was the Maya culture. The idea was always to raise your vibration enough that you can switch your body, you ascend into the other world without, there's no death. That was the thing for. That's the whole training that Carlos Castaneda did. But anyhow, coming back to this, so I was saying like, a fluctuation of like terrestrial to celestial like wipe
Mm-hmm.
me, yeah, bring me up, you know, somewhere. So, but when you say, Teresa, about the ascension as like more as a intention, or raising vibration and ideas, or energies, then makes sense. Totally, yes, of course. And also it's more like day-to-day life, like cooking or using creativity to raise that and make you feel more you. When, like, in the movie, you told me about that, the movie Soul, when they are like in their tone, or the enlightenment, where they're like, they, how do you call it, their mojo, they're like really in tuning,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, they're in their body but out of the body at the same time. It's like feeling completely vibration and being them in the total present experience, moment present. And yeah, so yeah, it makes sense the way you explain it, Teresa, and also you, Sydney.
So then the other question is that enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
Does spiritual development lead us to enlightenment?
Uh, I feel it's one of those, gosh, the enlightenment question, right? I think we've had this come up before in one of the other
Yes.
lives, and we're just like, I think that one's tough. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with enlightenment or that it's not possible or something, but it's one of those things where it's like whoever claims to be enlightened is probably not enlightened, and then how would I also ever claim? And then there's the thing of like, I think as well, enlightenment will be an ongoing journey, not a destination, especially while we're here, where it's like you can have the experience of being in enlightenment, and then like drop out of it and like fall out of it, or uh the same way that like our moods shift. But gosh, yeah, with enlightenment, I hesitate to make any claims or promises, or yeah, I think it's something that is worth exploring personally. And I would again, it's one of those things where sometimes people do get superior about, whether it's like they think someone else is enlightened and then put that person on pedestal, or they think of themselves that way. So it's one of those things where it's like the cupping of water in your hands, right? The more you like try and grasp it, the less of it you will actually have in your hands, because you're like, gotta latch onto that enlightenment state or result. And yeah, it's like what was it, Annie, was it you were saying earlier, the not doing? Enlightenment feels like one of these like not doing type things.
No, I completely agree with you that, the
Yeah.
ascension journey and the enlightenment, while they are part of an outcome of our practice, spiritual development, it could be an outcome, but it is not the end of the journey. It is part of the journey. Occasionally you get to see it, occasionally you don't, but it doesn't mean that that is the end game, even if we did get there, right? Because if we did do our spiritual development with that end in mind, then it completely erases the spiritual development in a way where it is about our own personal growth and our personal journey. Because if we all know that, I just want to be enlightened, I just want to be a holy being and be enlightened, then that completely erases that whole journey.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you say. So is an outcome is an outcome without us wanting that outcome. It's just like, to me, very often when people say that they join a church because it promises them a seat in heaven,
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, so you're only doing good because you want a seat in heaven, right? It's like a resume to get you that job.
You're like, I'm only doing this community service because it will look good on my application.
Right. Right, then to me, then I don't have the word to describe it, but to me that's a bit off.
It's almost like it stops the experience from being what it was originally going to be. Like in the community service example, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're not actually experiencing the being in a sense of service. You're experiencing, I need to do this thing so that I get the result that I need to get the whatever. So it's a completely different pathway. The actions look the same, but the experience is completely different. And I think that can happen a lot with like the pursuit of enlightenment, or even like a lot of the topics we've talked about today.
You
And I
phrase it
think
so well.
yeah, it's just always, if this is something that is interesting to you, the way that like I think it's interesting to me. A big question is, of course, then why do I want this? And I want to know if I'm like, like the resume example, or if it's some other reasoning for myself. And when I get to the point where I'm like, I don't know, I just find it really interesting. And I just enjoy being in the activity, not for any other, like in order to get to somewhere, but this is just interesting for its own sake. Then, that's when it feels the best.
Yeah, I like how you phrase it. It's very, very well put, like, exactly what it means to that. Are you doing it for the sake of a outcome with the intention, or are you just doing it for the sake of the experience of helping someone or being there for somebody? So yeah. So
If it helps them, at the end of the day and at the end of the life, if it helps them, why not? If it, like, who am I to say anything about this? But, we're all here for our own experiences, and we all are also experiencing all our belief systems, and but the thing, if it nourishes them, if they makes it feel happy, if they do feel happy or confident about that, then good for them. Who am I to say that this is from my eyesight? Well, for me, it's not for me. Then it's okay. But I see other people. They're also investing a lot of time in their own either religion or time into something, and as long as they are happy, because I think that we have problem in our whole what's happening on earth right now is like that most people are unsatisfied or feeling alone or feeling clueless or so confused. So what my husband would say, that like what helps. So anything that raises the vibrations, go for it.
So then, question, spiritual development practices, what would you have included in your daily life for your spiritual development practices?
Ooh. What would I include?
Or what do you include? Do you practice it daily, or occasionally, or do you set aside time intentionally, 1 hour a day or 2 hours a week, or
To me, I think the biggest thing, and it's not just for spirituality's sake, but like the personal development stuff, and kind of like all different aspects of life. The biggest thing for me is around awareness of myself. And I was always the like chronic overthinker, and learning how to take that, and instead of it kind of forming these like self-destructive loops where I'd be like asking myself bad questions and then giving answers to myself to those questions, um, being able to develop the awareness, to develop the observer is the biggest thing. And it's one of those things where I feel like everything is practice. Every interaction I have with another person, every emotion that I feel is another opportunity to let it be and to be the observer. And I don't manage to make use of every single opportunity, but even if I can't get it in the moment, it's something where having the practice for me to reflect upon it has been a really big deal. And to not be so quick to cast judgment on myself or other people and form interpretations around my own experiences. I'll like let everything sit a little bit and just be like, what's the information that's coming through? What am I receiving first? And I just like sit back and look at it. That's kind of the most important thing for me.
Nice. Annie?
I like what you said, Sydney. Reminds me of the 4 agreements. Awareness is the key, right? And the more I'm aware of it, it's like that's why what I teach also people about their posture is like the more you're aware of it, the more you know how screwed. Yeah, thank you. Yep. but mostly it's like I used to think that it was like meditation, reading books, prayers, but now I do it like a little game. And the little game is like how much beauty can I see? How much love can I recognize or acknowledge and see through? How much time did I take? Like I stop the time and I see those clouds are amazingly gray, or those flowers. I you can see those.
Yeah, I can see.
I acknowledge the you know the creation, the the colors. It's more like it used to be more about me, but more I realized that the more I look at outside of my bubble, and I realize how much like, wow, I'm so lucky to have that. Yesterday I went to bed and I'm thinking, it's not. I don't take a lot of things for granted. For a long time I did, but I realize now with all the wars going on, it's like I have a roof over my head. I am free. And those things that I remind myself, like I am with my age and I'm still walking, or I don't have arthrosis. You know how it is amazing with my, usually my age or whatever. So the more I connect those chips of joy, the sparkle of joy,
Mm-hmm.
and connect and say thank you, the more I know that I just feel that I'm growing. I feel the expansion automatically. It opens my out. It's not like that every day. Okay. It's not like, whoo, like, but I'd
Yeah.
say yes. But like you said, Sydney, acknowledging also the emotions, like how I feel. And yeah. And when I realized like, okay, I just criticized something or it was grumpy or whatever, it's like, not feeling ashamed, like we're humans and it's okay. And also when I used to go to those meetings, like when you realize that you have done something wrong, this is I think the 10th step or the 8th one. It's been a long time, I haven't checked. You have to, if you can, not just forgive, but if you can pay amends without disturbing the person, do it as soon as you can, or you realize you have done something wrong. If you can't, then have a prayer or try to seek for forgiveness. So it's about, cleaning. I like a clean house, so I like to have clean thoughts. So the awareness is my heavy duty cleaner, and it's how I put myself back on track, because then it's the only way I found out that like this life can be amazing. As long as I was desperate to end it, now I savor it. So it's not a quickie, there's no magic spells. This is my own exercise and how it's working for me. Other people like Teresa like to write, but or music. I always say if you don't know where to start with something that makes joy or fun. So if it's like dancing like crazy 3 minutes with your best song, that's spiritual too.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so shake it out.
Yeah, and it's all so what all of you have, like I love what both of you have just said. Absolutely, you know, in your own way, it is so beautiful. It's about your awareness. And I would add to what both of you have said, and that was really personal for me, is actually appreciation, gratitude for every person I come across, every opportunity to discover something, every little things I read that have a message for me to shift me and expand me. For me, that is like something that I'm always on the lookout for. Like, you know, when I make a new connection with a new friend, deep appreciation, deep gratitude, and then I go into the connectedness within to say that what gift this friend has brought me. I mean, I say gift, I'm not talking about the material, whatever, but gifting to me in the sense of like, you know, what she has or he has or she has brought for me to expanded views, expanded awareness, deeper connection with this universe that we are in. And I love what both of you have just said. And of course, like there's many other practices, and I love what you said about dancing. I love dancing. Even with myself, I blast music and I just do silly moves, right? And it doesn't matter like how awkward or how silly, it's just joy with it. Like the other day, I went with my girlfriend to her 53rd birthday, and initially, like it is a karaoke session, and I usually will not even pick up the mic because like I was traumatized once when my mom heard me singing and she cried. She cried laughing, not
Oh,
moved,
nine.
not moved by my singing, but she cried because she was laughing at how bad I was. And also at the same time, she felt so sorry that she didn't give me a voice, and yet I love singing. But you know, when I was with my girlfriends and I saw them belting the tunes and with like we are in a safe space, we don't care, you know, and I just sang. And I know they gave me the look and I go, wow, you are so bad. But it doesn't matter anymore, right? And that is also some form of accepting who I am. So if somebody come to me and say, oh my God, Teresa, you sing bad, it doesn't matter. I have that level of acceptance. I go, yeah, I'm a bad singer. Pass me the mic. Let me entertain.
Yeah.
Right. And so definitely dancing, singing, journaling. A lot of people do journaling, right? Drawing. I think Sydney,
Yeah,
you
the
do a lot
arts
of
are
the arts,
across all
absolutely.
mediums.
Yeah. I know that my sister loved to do crochets and sewing, and you know, for a lot of people is knitting. They can knit nothing and just keep knitting, and they will have something that comes up. So these are all our own deeper connection to us, inner connection to who we are. And that is one form of development, because knowing that we are spirit by nature, and that's our inner journey to who we are. So we are coming to, wow, I couldn't believe it. We're already gone like for
Whoa.
19, like 75 minutes of our conversation. So shall
Wow,
we
more
bring in
than
some channeling about this topic?
Ooh, exciting. Let's see what everyone
See
has
who
to
wants to
say.
come. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Hello.
Hi, who's this?
This is Mother Mary.
Oh, hello, Mother Mary. So nice of you to come to our YouTube live channel.
You have, all of you, covered so many of the abstract experiences that have been with humanity since its beginning, and with many other beings as well. We do not want to give too much of this journey, this adventure, this game away to you all. Only know that there is no wrong approach to having an experience. This is not something you can get wrong. There is no particular interpretation that we are trying to lead you towards. Every single one of you is simply adding your specific piece of information to the larger tapestry of lives that are being woven. So when it comes to your choices, in some ways, they are so very open, and that can be overwhelming, which is why these practices that allow you to seek guidance can be so powerful to help to, in a sense, narrow the options into the ones that you might find most joyful, that those who guide you and to have your best interests at heart feel will be most joyful to you. For ultimately, there is a level of existence where there are no mistakes and there are no wrong answers. However, you do exist in the experience where you can feel that there has been a mistake or a wrong answer. So I hope that you will take this message as a kind of relief if you have experienced your life or your purpose to be a heavy and difficult topic. It is not one that you can truly ever get wrong. There is a level where there are no mistakes. So enjoy it to the best of your abilities.
Thank you.
Ultimately, there are no judgments that are being placed upon you from on high. We hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Mother Mary. Thank you.
Lord Kamara.
Hi, Lord Kamara. Thank you for coming.
I would like to invite each of every one of you to your own senses, to your own center, and feel empowered when you do think you don't have power. Feeling centered is in tuning your own energy. Feeling grounded helps you to expand and take action of what you are in tuning. And in tuning and connecting from above helps you to get a bigger picture of what's happening. So you're not caught in the middle of your own thoughts. I invite you to center yourself, connect, ground as under and above. And we're here to help you become who you really are in your own potential, what you came here to do to accomplish your purpose, and maybe more or less, it doesn't matter in that perspective. However, We're here to help you expand as above and beyond. It is unique. Each lives are unique, and we would like to help you find your own uniqueness, your own color, your own form and shapes, aspects, and also enjoy the process and the route you are on.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Kumara. That was beautiful. Any other beings want to come through?
Hmm.
It's okay to let them through. Do we have someone who wants to come through? And no?
I can tell you what I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
but I decided to subtract myself or cut to come because I started to have headaches. So, but there was the lion at the Lion's Gate, even though we're not in August and close to your birthday. But it was just wanted to tell us like, I'm here to empower you. I'm here to give you strength. To to start to embark really in your own life and to take the next step. And sometimes we're so many different times in our lives stuck. So I think it was like I would see him like doing this paw in France, like, yeah, we need to take the next step. Yeah. So and sometimes you have to start with a yes.
Well,
Yeah, oh.
go ahead, Hassan.
Oh yeah, I was quiet because it was very enjoyable and yeah, I decided to come back as well. But I could feel a lot of different beings, but it very quickly became very abstract. I could kind of feel like the Earth, the solar system, the sort of interconnectedness of like this idea that we're all writing little stories and they're all like playing into each other. And after a while, it just kind of became like abstract shapes. Like these kinds of shapes and these kinds of shapes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think part of our whole spiritual development conversation is really about accepting that we are spirit, that we are more than just this physical body. We are more than all these material things that's around us. And even as I right now still connected, right, and I'm touching the space that I'm in, I can feel a lot of different energy, because we are energy beings, we are spirit beings, and that is something that in the work that we do, when we come forward to acknowledge that we are spirit, and that's when there is that owning back one part of us that in many things that we study, or when we do, like when we go to work or when we study in school, right, there isn't that acknowledgement, and somehow we need to acknowledge that ourselves, and through the acknowledgement then we become whole and complete. And I think I want to give credit to the religion who actually gives space for that to be acknowledged, right? But many, very much so, is that in the work that we do as channelers, and when we go in to do the healing, we, number one, acknowledge that. And we acknowledge that there are many things that cannot be articulated or verbalized. And that's why we give them that voice and support them and help them with that journey. Yeah. So hopefully today everybody found this to be an interesting topic. I think this is the first time that I actually see 11 people watching our live. So whoever's watching, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And there are so many likes. So that's also very unusual. This is probably the first time that we actually gained some traction. in this live
interaction.
So thank you all very much. Till next week, we will have another interesting topic. So stay tuned. Good night.
Good night, or good
Or
afternoon,
good day.
good morning, wherever you are.
See you next week.
See you next week.